Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our special assembly this morning, all about the NHS. The school council had this idea that they wanted us to take a day where we would just stop and think about the NHS and how amazing it is and how wonderful it is to have, especially at the moment when they are looking after us so well during this pandemic. So I'm hoping that as you're watching this, you're either wearing blue or you're dressed as a hero, because the school council wanted the theme to be NHS Heroes. I'm just going to take a few moments this morning to give us some time to think about the NHS and how special it is and to celebrate it with you. And there'll be some questions in this assembly that I just want you to think about. If you're in school, you might be able to take the chance to discuss them with the people that are with you. If you're at home watching with a brother or sister, then take the time to discuss it with them as well. So let's celebrate the NHS together. Let's start with the NHS and what it stands for. So NHS, the letters stand for the National Health Service. And I wonder how many of you have ever used it. Now you might be sitting there thinking, oh, I don't know if I have, but I can guarantee that everybody, well, almost everybody I can guarantee, would have used the National Health Service at some point. If you were born in a hospital, that was probably run by the National Health Service. Or if you've been to a dentist, for children, often they're National Health Service dentists as well. If you've ever been in a situation where an ambulance has been called and you've been taken to hospital, then that is the National Health Service. So I wonder what your stories are of the National Health Service and how it has helped you, because I'm sure there are lots of them within our school community. So when did it begin? Well, it was actually begun by a man called Aneurin Bevan, who was the Labour Party's health secretary, and he was responsible for establishing the National Health Service on the 5th of July 1948. That means that the National Health Service is now over 70 years old. Although it was started in 1948, the idea of needing it had been around for a lot longer, and it was actually the Second World War that made it happen even faster than perhaps some people would have expected. Before the NHS, life was very difficult, especially if you were poor. 1 in 20 babies would die before they turned a year old, and the life expectancy, that's how long people were expected to live, of both men and women, was much lower than it is today. So because of poor health, people weren't expected to live as long as we do live today. Thousands of people before the NHS, thousands of people died from infectious diseases such as pneumonia, tuberculosis, and polio. Many could not afford to see a well-trained doctor. So why did it begin? Well, the National Health Service was made so that everyone, no matter how rich or poor they were, could visit a doctor, buy medicine, and have an operation if they needed to. There are many different people who work in the NHS, and every single person is important for the National Health Service to work together and to keep us well. Now, lots of you will know that when I was younger, I desperately wanted to be a nurse and to work in the National Health Service as a nurse. But there are far more jobs than that in the National Health Service. It's huge. So if you're thinking, oh, when I grow up, I'd like to work for the NHS, have a look at these jobs that we're about to look at and see if one of them appeals to you. So we have paramedics. Paramedics help at emergencies when someone dials 999. They give people first aid and use an ambulance to get them to hospital quickly. I wonder if any of you have ever thought about becoming a paramedic when you're older. And then we have the people who answer 999 calls. This is another job that I've always been really interested in, and I think I'd quite like this job. Lots of people are needed to answer the telephone when people call 999. They work out what help is needed and send the right person. I think that would be a really interesting job. I'm quite interested in that one. And then we have doctors. Doctors see poorly patients in doctors' surgeries and in hospitals. They work out what's wrong and they might perform operations. So you have different kinds of doctors, don't you? The doctor that your mum and dad might take you to see if you're not feeling particularly well in a doctor's surgery, we call those our GPs. But then you do have doctors in hospitals and surgeons in hospitals, and the surgeons are the doctors who will perform operations for you. And then, of course, we have nurses. I wonder how different my life would have been if I had grown up to become a nurse. Nurses care for poorly patients. They might take your temperature, clean a wound, or give you an injection. They'll look after you if you're in hospital, and they will get a doctor if you need one, but they'll also be there day to day, making sure that you are being looked after. And if you've been ill, they'll be making sure you get what you need to make a recovery. Then we have pharmacists. Now, pharmacists get medicine ready for people who are poorly. They give people advice about taking the right medicine to get better. So we have pharmacists in hospitals who get the medicine ready for people, but we also have pharmacists in chemists on the high street. So if your doctor gives you a prescription and says that you need some medicine, your parents will take it to the chemist, and the pharmacist is the person who prepares that to make sure that you get the right medicine and that you get the right amount. That's a really important job. They have to make sure that they get everything right because they're there to help people get better, so they don't want to make a mistake. And then we have the management. Now, the NHS managers have to make sure the system runs smoothly. They work out how to spend money, how many people are needed to work at each hospital, and lots more. They have quite a difficult job. So that's the management. And then we have midwives. Midwives look after women who've been pregnant. They help to deliver the baby and to keep the mum and baby healthy afterwards. I wonder if that job appeals to any of you, helping women who are going to have a baby and looking after that baby. And then we have the public health team. I've had lots of talks over the last year with our public health team in Bracknell. The public health team are in charge of making sure that we know how to live healthy lives and what to do if we are unwell. So at the moment, the public health team are really busy giving lots of people advice, including schools, and helping us to make decisions and telling us what to do if somebody is poorly at school. So the public health team at the moment, they're doing an amazing job. And I'm certainly glad that they're there and that they're so good at their job as well. And we have mental health workers. Now, these NHS workers support people's minds and help them if they feel really sad or worried. So somebody might not be visibly hurt. You might not see on the outside that they're not well or that they hurt, but mental health workers will help people who feel sad or worried. So sometimes it isn't always that you can see when somebody isn't well, and mental health workers will help people when perhaps you can't see there's something wrong, but there is because of the way that person feels. And then we have the wider healthcare team. So there are lots of people needed to make the NHS work, such as cleaners, porters, chefs, building staff, and more. I wonder if there's one of those jobs that you've never thought of before, but now you're thinking, actually, I'd quite like that job. I heard last week that there are more people in the country at the moment who want to be nurses than ever before, because they've seen over the last year the amazing job that nurses are doing. And they think, actually, I'd like that job. That's a rewarding job and it's something that I would enjoy. So have a think, is there some job that we've just looked at that you think, actually, I'd quite like that. I think that would be interesting. It's always good to have a dream, to have something that you are working towards. So that's the staff in the NHS with all the different jobs that they do. Obviously, since 2020, COVID-19 and the pandemic has been a really big issue. And it's been an incredibly difficult time for the NHS, with employees tackling numerous cases of COVID-19 every day. Millions of NHS employees have helped manage the COVID-19 crisis. They have put their own health at risk to make sure all patients have the best treatment. They have been heroes during this epidemic. They really have, and that's why we wanted to just take some time today to celebrate them and to remember them. And what I would ask is, if you know someone who works for the NHS, today, can you make part of your home learning, making sure that you say thank you to them, and perhaps telling them that at Crowthorne we have remembered them today and we are grateful for them. You might have heard of Nightingale hospitals. 7 temporary hospitals were set up across England to help cope with the demand on hospital beds from the COVID-19 outbreak. So when the government realised that lots of people would need to go to hospital to be treated for the COVID-19, they realised we didn't have enough hospital beds for all those people to be ill at the same time. So they had to build 7 temporary hospitals, starting from scratch. It was an amazing achievement. These hospitals were named Nightingale hospitals after Florence Nightingale, the British nurse who is regarded as the founder of modern nursing. And I think it's year 2, I'm not sure if it is still year 2, but certainly in the past year 2, you learnt about Florence Nightingale and about the difference she made to hospitals because of the way she went about her job as a nurse. During the COVID-19 crisis, we were once again made aware of the incredible efforts of the NHS workers, and so we started to clap for carers. Many people around the country took part in the weekly clap for carers to thank key workers for their hard work and courage during the outbreak. I wonder how many of you did take part. I know in my street we would open the door at 8 o'clock on a Thursday and clap for the NHS workers, and you could hear it rippling around the community as well. It's one of those things that I think we will remember long after this pandemic is over. And also the rainbows. We had amazing rainbows on our fence, didn't we? Well, during the lockdown in the UK, when we were not allowed to meet other people from our household, we put rainbows on our windows to bring us all together. It says here, to bring people together, a campaign began where rainbows were displayed in windows to cheer up passers-by. The rainbows were used as a message of peace and hope. Rainbows can often be seen when the sun follows a heavy rainfall. They can remind us that light follows even after dark times. And that's something for us that's particularly important today. We know now that the government has announced that schools can open again fully to everybody on March the 8th. So we have been through this really dark time where life has been uncertain, you've been kept away from school, you've had to stay away from lots of your friends, but now there is some light coming because we now have a date and we have a plan for how we can start to get life back to normal. When you come back to school, it still won't be completely normal. Of course, we'll still have lots of things in place to make sure that you stay safe. We're really grateful that this vaccine has come, that we will all eventually get, that will mean that if we should catch COVID, we won't be as poorly. But until we get that, we need to make sure that everybody stays safe. So when you do come back to school, we will still have some of those rules in place that we had before, and there'll be some other things that are different as well. But your teachers are going to spend lots of time talking you through those, so you don't have to worry about them at all. So that is the NHS today, an amazing organisation. And I think one of the incredible things is that it's available for all of us. As it said at the beginning, it doesn't matter how much money you have or whether you don't have any money at all. The NHS is there for all of us. And that is why it's so treasured and so special. The health service is paid for by taxes. So when people start work, the government takes a bit of their money that they earn and it's put into things like the National Health Service to make sure that when we do need an ambulance, when we do need a doctor, there is one there for us. And I know from a personal experience, I am so grateful that they are there. And I think of how they've helped me and I think of how they've helped my family, and they do an amazing job. Let's make sure we never take that for granted. We are very fortunate in this country that we have access to doctors and nurses when we need them. Sometimes we don't realise until we go to a different country how different it is there. And then I think sometimes we come home and we appreciate the National Health Service even more. So just some time to think now. What would it be like if you couldn't afford to visit a doctor when you're ill? Think about what that might be like if we didn't have the National Health Service. What would it be like if you were poorly and you couldn't go to a hospital and you couldn't get the help that you needed? What would you do? And where would you go? And then I also would like you to take some time to think about those jobs, about those careers. Is there anything that you've heard about today that you think, I want to find out a bit more about that? That sounded like a really interesting job. I think I'd like to do that when I'm older. I'd really like to encourage you to take some time today to think about those things and those options. And remember, if you know somebody who works for the National Health Service today, please take some time to say thank you from us all at Crowthorne for all that they do. I'm going to share some videos with your teachers. Key Stage 2, they're particularly appropriate for some of you. So you might find underneath this assembly link that there is another link for some videos for you to watch about the National Health Service. But I hope that you have a great day. Enjoy, if you're dressed as a hero, enjoy your hero day. And if you're dressed in blue for the NHS, then thank you for doing that and for making the effort. I'm going to say goodbye now. I will be seeing you all soon. I'm looking forward to March the 8th. We'll be sending out letters and information to your parents as soon as we can to give them more details. But until then, take care, stay safe. There are still rules in place, so please make sure you're still living by those rules, and we will see you back in school very soon. Take care, everyone. Bye.